Oh, hello. Hi. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the April APIDA month open mic. My name is Kenny. I use they, them pronouns. I am the cultural programmer at Mosaic Cross Cultural Center. Um, and yes, welcome. Tonight this is it's gonna be in honor of Asian Pacific Islander Desi American or APIDA for short Heritage Month. Um we are excited to collaborate with the APIDA Task Force and the Student Union for this event. And also, we have the honor of having the wonderful Giles as our featured artist, as well as our two student artists, Rebecca Lee and Nina Chuang. Um, so before we begin, we want to take the time to acknowledge that Indigenous people are the true stewards of Northern America. Um, Currently, we're spread out all over California and the world. So we want to encourage you all to search and learn more about the Indigenous people in your area. You can do this by going to native-land.ca. Or if you want a quicker option, you can text your city and your state to 1-907-312-5085. You'll get a response that tells you which Indigenous people's land you're on. So here in San Jose at San Jose State University, obviously, we're on we want to thank the Malekmaloni and Tamian communities and honor their past and current voices. Um, so yeah, I think in the chat there should be a link going by um, and the number going by. So if y'all want to do that and honor the people whose land you're inhabiting, please do that. So on top of that, in addition to that, I want to go over the community guidelines. As you know, um, as we do every open mic, we just want to make sure that everybody is having a good time, but also a safe good time. So, um, first, free speech, not hate speech. Um, that should be pretty obvious with everyone. We are here to express ourselves and say how we feel, but there's a difference between hate speech and free speech. Um, Next, express, not impress. We're here to, share out with our community. So no need to feel perfect or perform perfectly. Um, we're just here to support each other and have a good time. We encourage you to be yourself. Perfection is a tool of white supremacy. Think about that. Um, and yeah, we're holding space with grace. So, if you need time to uh relax, take a minute, breathe. I know I stumble a lot with my words, so it's good to just take time, breathe, relax, and continue with what you were saying or what you were expressing. And then last but not least, please provide trigger warnings if y'all do share anything. The power of your story can cause painful impact. So we want to make sure everybody is prepared for whatever they're about to hear. But yeah, so keeping all that in mind, we encourage everyone here watching to chat in the chat box, so we can all encourage each other and feel that sense of community that we're all craving now with the pandemic. You can all sign up to perform during the event. If you weren't able to do that beforehand, we have live signups. There will be a link going in the chat. So if you do feel inspired by our amazing artists tonight, please feel free to sign up and share with us. So with all that in mind, I would like to invite Parl, who will be my co-host tonight, to please introduce herself and kick us off. Parl.
Oops. Hi, everyone. My name is Parl. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My role at the APIDA task force is I'm a student coordinator for events and outreach. My major is finance, and I'm currently a fourth year. And I want to start off by sharing a little bit about APIDA Heritage Month, and where you can find all the events for this month. So in our Instagram link at SJSU APIDA, which is SJSU and then APIDA, we have our list of events in our link tree. You can see a calendar, and we also have made a post about it. We do have the RSVPs for most of the events in our link tree if they're needed. And if you had any questions, you can contact me or our Instagram. We do update regularly on there. So now we have some amazing feature student artists who will kick us off together. For first, we have Nina, who will be sharing some of their artwork with us. Nina, you're welcome to introduce yourself and get us started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm currently a third year at San Jose State. I study nutritional science with a concentration in dietetics. I apologize earlier, I was muted, but I am currently pursuing career in food science research, but one of my hobbies includes artwork, murals, and painting. Thank you. So just some background before I start off explaining my artworks and pieces. I mostly do my artwork from an Asian American woman perspective. I identify as a Taiwanese and Malaysian American woman. So you'll kind of see that throughout my work. So this is the first piece that we have here. It's actually one of the first pieces I started making when I was going through kind of like history books and doing research. I had a period of time in high school where I kind of had this awakening within myself that Asian American activism and history isn't really well known right now in the Bay Area or even nationwide. So this piece is kind of a self-portrait of my experience as an Asian American woman. And this was made in 2017. It's made of collage, acrylic, and marker. If you look at this piece, there are two sides of this piece, of this woman. One side is kind of the stereotypes of Asian culture and Asian heritage. Another side is actually the stereotypes of the American dream. So if you're looking at this piece, on your right side, you can see kind of like Japanese pictures from magazines, kind of geography, and there's actually a picture of a woman, of a geisha, actual like, which is actually correct compared to what cultural appropriation. But anyways, and if you see above the geisha, there's actually an image of what seems to be a Japanese woman serving an American family, right? And this was found in a National Geographic. All of these images were found in National Geographic magazine. So there's some context there. Not too much to say about that. If you go onto the left side of the piece, you can see not only the stereotypes of the American dream, but also kind of different stereotypes and problems within our society. For example, you see a really big picture of a white woman looking at a man in the, if you look on the left side. You also see like fishing man, you see a golfer. There's also like a lot of dancing pictures. And it shows the difference, two sides of, this is a self-portrait, right? So this is the two sides that, for me at least, I deal with every day. This constant battle of not only battling the stereotypes of the American dream and this whole ideal country, and this other side, stereotypes of Asian women, stereotypes of Asian people. If you look at the clothing, this woman in the middle is wearing a qipao, which is Chinese traditional clothing. And if you look kind of closely, it's kind of hard to tell, but these are kind of like a bunch of words jumbled up and that make up this dress. And it shows the inner dialogue that one could feel with these two worlds colliding with one another. This inner dialogue, this inner anger and jumbled up mess, you would say. And yeah. That's it for this piece. Next slide, please. So I don't have a title for this one, but this is a commission that was done. A local restaurant in Alameda asked me to paint a mural for their outdoor dining area. And if you see here, if you look on the right side here, actually, I'll explain about the overall piece. This piece is inspired by Vietnamese culture, and also there's little aspects of it that are kind of, it kind of makes up the whole piece. This restaurant is located in Alameda, like I said, and there's actually a couple bridges throughout Alameda because it is an island that are green. So if you see that there's this like a really crooked bridge going through between the two dragons, that is to represent this bridge. And actually, if you do visit this restaurant, it's called Dragon Rouge. Shout out at Dragon Rouge by the Bay on Instagram. You actually can see one of these bridges when you're eating your food. The food is super bomb, super great. I love the restaurant. They're really close friends. So yeah, next slide, please. So these are the two sides of this piece. So I'm first going to explain the left side. So for some context, there's to explain the piece first. There's a kind of like a fire dragon, and there's its tail is connected to this lady with an ao dai, wearing an ao dai, Vietnamese woman, right? And this was kind of a painting done kind of low-key inspired by the stereotype dragon lady, where there's this stereotype of Asian women being like this mysterious, quiet, but in reality, right, we are the dragon. We aren't a dragon lady. We are the dragon here. We're inside of us. There's this inner fierceness and a fire burning within us that, we are dragons in general, right? So that's kind of a little hard to explain, but that's what I was kind of trying to interpret in this piece, kind of trying to show this this Asian side of the two sides here, this Asian kind of dragon on one side, and the other side, if you see, is another dragon. So if you go on the right picture, this dragon is to represent this land. So this Bay Area land, this dragon has, it's kind of hard to see, but there's little aspects that are the same color as the bridge to represent America. And these dragons are kind of like fighting each other on both sides of the bridge. As you can tell, there's like a corner. So if you only can see one dragon on one side, but if you continue walking, you'll see the other dragon. It kind of shows that like you only can see one side when you're walking, if that makes sense. This American dragon also has, it's kind of like a water dragon. So there's like a tail going through water. If you keep going through down the mural. And yeah, that's the mural. Next slide, please. Okay, so I had the privilege of designing the flyer background for the Gregory's Jam Music Festival. And this piece is really meaningful, not only to me, but I think to the community. I think that this piece really took a long time, even though it doesn't seem as much as other ones. Let me pull up my notes. But Gregory Johnson, who was a student at San Jose State, was murdered by a fraternity in 2007. And I wanted to help commemorate his memory here, and also in his presence, right? So Clear Lake, California. This is a picture of Clear Lake, California. Actually, the process was I was on a Zoom call for a planning meeting, and Miss Johnson showed her backyard, and it had this beautiful lake in the background. I was like, I have to make something. I have to incorporate this in this flyer and in our marketing flyers, right? So yeah, and this is also this color scheme was also picked by her. So yeah, this is a lot of meaning. You know, we can express and make moves with our own, not only our words, but with our work and with our music, right? So yeah. And this is just the final flyer from the event. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about their movement, it's at Justice for Gregory Johnson on Instagram. Okay, this piece was made actually when COVID first started. This was in light of actually the spark of anti-Asian attacks, and also like this weird surge of toilet paper and obsession with hand sanitizer. If you watch anime, this is an edit on the anime Your Lie in April. But the title of this piece is called Stay Home in April. If you can see, I kind of edited a couple like computer images. Sometimes I drew a little bit. There's the background of this was originally, I think, like a field of grass, but instead they're lying on a pile of toilet paper. As you can see, I forgot her name, but there's a hand here, and it's written on this hand is hate is a virus, right? When this is first started, the surge of not only anti-Asian hate, but just like unrest within our country, right? And in the world, right? There, you see this Costco membership, you see the hand sanitizer, you see the Zoom, and they're all wearing masks, right? And I posted this piece on subtle Asian traits, and it got a lot of attention just because, a lot of people weren't understanding staying home yet. It was more like you can stay home if you want to, but later on, throughout COVID, we actually had quarantine and stuff like that. So okay, so these flyers are kind of a series that I created for a rally actually happening tomorrow, and it's called Not Your 34, so that's the title of this piece. I drew a woman with a mango hat because I was inspired by the APIDA logo. Shout out to APIDA Task Force, and she's wearing a mango beret. And that's kind of the highlight of this piece. I wanted to create an image that kind of was empowering during this time, right? trigger warning, I'll be discussing about the events that happened in Georgia. This piece was made like literally like a couple days after I heard about the events that happened in Georgia. So if you don't know, there was a shooting that happened in 2 massage parlors, and the majority of the victims were Asian women. And I wanted to create a piece that kind of was like low-key and empowering image, but also like a cute image just to, you know, put on a sticker or something, or even on a marketing flyer for a rally, right? And there's actually 4 images, but I want to include 3. There's different skin tones to kind of acknowledge the vastness of the APIDA community, right? There's not one skin color for our community, which is so beautiful. I love that. And we're all wearing mango hats. So yes. Next slide, please. Okay, so this, I don't have a name for this piece either. Actually, I need to work on naming my pieces. This image was kind of a combination of American muscle cars and Asian culture, right? So again, with the 2 sides, just for some context, my dad drove a Trans Am when he first came to the US. It was one of his first like very loved cars, right? And on a Trans Am, there's an emblem of a Firebird. So he drove a Firebird, a Trans Am Pontiac, I would say. I think that's the name. And there's this beautiful Firebird on the front, right? And the Firebird comes from, yes, a Pontiac. And this Firebird comes from, I believe, German mythology, and I wanted to put my own spin on it, right? So I was actually thinking, I actually bought my first car actually over COVID after working more hours because, you know, summertime. And I bought a Subaru WRX, and I had this idea of making a big decal similar to the Pontiac, but kind of my own twist. So instead of a Firebird in the middle, I still took the wings as inspiration, right? I made it into a phoenix. And if you can see, there's kind of the symbols of the Malaysian flag and the Taiwanese flag in the body of the phoenix. You see 2 different stars. So the star that has triangles for their sun rays is from the Taiwanese flag. And the one that's right next to the moon is the Malaysian flag. It's kind of like representing me coming from like kind of flapping my wings from coming from my dad's car. The image in my head is that while my dad was driving from Missouri to California, I was that bird on top of the car, and I was like flying with him to California. I wasn't born yet. My dad met my mom in California, but that was just kind of my imagery when I was making this. I also created the tail. I wanted to add a little bit of spice to this bird. I know that there was a tail on the original Firebird, but I want to add a little like, I would say, little fire, purple fire, I would say, coming from the phoenix. Yeah. Next slide, please. And I think that is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you all for inviting me to this. I really appreciate it. Oh, you can follow me on Instagram at Nina E. Chuang, NINA ECHUANG on Instagram.
Wow, everybody, give it up for Nina. Wow, that art is so beautiful. I think a lot of people said in the chat, but like the meaning behind all of the work is like so amazing. And like I love all the little details that you put into it and the thought that you put into everything. So Thank you so much. Show some love in the chat, everybody. But yeah, up next, we have Rebecca Lee sharing some poetry with us. Rebecca, come on out.
Hi, everybody. Great job, Nina. I loved all your art, and I really want to go see that restaurant now, but we'll see. We'll see. So I'm Rebecca Lee. I am a third-year English major. I just third-year English major writing with the creative writing community on campus, and I'm going to share poetry with you today. A lot of these I wrote during quarantine, as when I had not more to think about, but more time to think about it and more ways to say what I needed to. So talking about that, I'm going to start off with a poem called Helpline Calls. It is free. All right. Helpline Calls. Did you know that there's a Primal Scream hotline from the New York Times? There's a poetry hotline from the Philadelphia Poet Laureate. I think they were created for the same emotion. There's a website where you can watch out someone else's window. I've seen a cat, snow falling, an empty street across the world. There's a podcast called Our Plague Year that I listen to. The motto is, it's a scary year, but it doesn't have to be scary alone. There are hundreds of virtual tours of places you miss, of places you've never been, of places you've never thought about before. There are live cameras on whales and penguins and large fish and small fish and elephants and lions. Want to see a polar bear? There is a little free library in my neighborhood. There were fireworks outside with no one in sight. It felt like an acknowledgement of celebration. It felt like all the holidays at once. There are people playing at the park. There is a NASA live cam of Mars from the Curiosity rover. There's perseverance in the stars. Peek into someone else's life. There are people trying to reach you. I savor the knowledge that I'm not alone in this feeling. I see residue of life out of the corners of my eyes. And outside, the wind rustles the bags we hung outside to dry. The wild animals build in ways they've always done, and the first green sprouts begin in the soil, in the soul, in the place where all the good things grow. I grow. I go there. Recently, it feels like I'm driving on the highway, where in a packed car with everyone else asleep. The radio plays quietly, and I can't take my eyes off the road, but I can hear them breathing. There's always the news. I know the crisis text lines. I know that we're listing the ways we're afraid for each other. That doesn't stop us from reaching out. Make yourself comfortable. Share what you know. Start a game. Start a conversation. Find places you want to share yourself. We can still leave each other a little happier. There's only so much of us these days. It's creating rituals and new beginnings, telling others who you are. Hello again. I'm new with me this week. I'm always starting over. Yeah. I found a lot of cool ways to look into other people's lives during quarantine, and I thought I'd put a couple of them into the poem. But yeah. All right. The next piece I'm going to read, I wrote with Meat Space Magazine, which is, I'm going to plug it later, but it's a student organization creating an art and writing magazine on campus. And when I wrote it, I was thinking about what I can't say and what I don't have the words to say yet. So it is called Swallow Silence. In swallow lavender-tinged phrases, the taste of things we do not say, hint of guilt that doesn't linger, of things I don't know how to mend. Instead, they fly away, swallow swift. I wonder how many it will take to fill my lungs. I wonder what I can do better this way. Swallow sforzando stillness. Breathe in sunshine. Breathe out smog. Swallow silence to keep the unsaid away. It's dangerous to feel you can say what you want, but I can't. I can't. I speak through a drain pipe clogged with life, voice sputtering through the things I have left to fester there. Sometimes the ways you listen only serve to make me quieter. Swallow first reactions and reckless action. It would be silly to voice every opinion that crosses your mind. Not everything is worth saying, and sometimes it's the better option. I swallow the unintended consequences. We are living, and that creates buildup. We accumulate, we save memory and habit and backup. Breathe in sunshine, breathe out smog. Somewhere in my respiratory system, I harbor a Krebs cycle that recognizes the warbling swallow of my voice. Wonder at the well-worn wheel. I find myself radio staticky. I find myself storm's edge shiver. I find myself on the wrong side of a waist-high cinder block wall. Swallow the truth before you decide a new one. I am myself, and my voice, and my silence. Yay. That was my second poem. And I think it says a lot of the things that I wanted to say about keeping words within you. And yeah. Dang. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute while we're in the thick of it to plug two places I write on campus are the Poets and Writers Coalition, which is the creative writing society club, and they are another event they're putting on soon is the Legacy of Poetry Festival that is with San Jose State University. Everyone's welcome to attend, and it's featuring poets from across California and USA. The last piece I just read was from Meat Space Magazine, and I've been writing with them for a few semesters now. They are phenomenal, and they're looking for student talent. So I'm gonna drop a couple links in the chat for their Instagrams, and if you want to find out more information, you can find my art there as well, because that's where I put it. All right, and then I think I have time for one more poem. I'm gonna read I'm gonna read the beginning of I was trying to think of what to read beforehand, but there's so much I want to say. All right, how about do two if I do go really fast. Here's okay, here is and not finished, which is, and it will be my last poem unless I have extra time. All right, not finished. Or an open letter to late nights, to half-remembered websites, to I remember playing on it. This piece was written to the prompt of being a digital native and what it means to have grown up on the internet. So I wrote when I wrote this, I was thinking, what do I remember about growing up on the internet and how has that affected me? What kind of how do I view the world now that that's where I started? And I titled it Not Finished because the internet's a story that I'm still living, that I'm still using every day, that's evolving with me, which is scary, but always happening. All right. An open letter to late nights, to half-remembered websites. I remember playing on coolmathgames.com. There was always something new to do there. It was full of memories that were gone in a flash. I revisit old favorites sometimes, and I don't recognize the way they've changed, or the ways I have. I love Webkins because of the world inside, and the recipes for success were all so simple. Every time I type letter by letter names of websites I found secondhand. I grew up with the internet. It wasn't completely mine, and it was closely guarded. I don't remember which YouTube channels I liked to watch, or the places I liked to be. I pressed play, but after that, the moments blur together, and I lurk. Open letter to the people I have been, to the places I've left behind, the paths now forgotten. I'm here, licking an imaginary envelope, shipping words a world away. I've done it 1,000 times before. We put content out for different reasons, and I was taught to expect the response. Maybe I don't want to reply. I won't wait up for one. Yeah, thank you all for listening to my poems. I'm going to ask, is there time for more? If not, yeah. I really enjoyed writing these, and I don't know how you organize your Google Docs, but mine is all over the place. One more. Okay. Decisions. Decisions. Okay. Here is, all right, show range. I started a piece recently, and it's going to be called Stage Performance. And it's thinking specifically, kind of building off Nina, shout out to Nina, but kind of building off the idea that we perform personality, we perform conformity, and the ways that our identities are viewed through a Western lens, which leads to imposter syndrome, which leads to false cultural assimilation and identity formation. Something I'm really trying to work with is decolonizing views and unlearning that performance that is more ingrained than I'd like it to be. And then one of those ways to do that is moving to a multicultural active watching instead of observation. Can't move eyes off you, and we're still going to be filtered through that. I've heard it described as the Western gaze, but aren't we? At some point, it should stop feeling like a performance. It should start feeling like living. If someone told me to think this way, but okay. Here is stage performance. It is a work in progress, but you don't have to know that. When lights go up, it is a struggle to stay still. Center stage is warm under the harsh spotlight every time instinct dictates we freeze first, and she pushes past the pause to perform, to present an ideal they believe in familiar pieces, creating self-doubt in the way she has been told, in the ways we are offset. When all the lights are on you, act to fit the audience's assumptions. Familiar pieces of myself performed under a spotlight, and isn't it always that way with bright lights? That we freeze in the headlights. Who will be watching me perform? What version will they expect? Time to face what you wonder when no one is watching. She sees me, and I shy away. And that is all my poems, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in and giving me space to share my poetry and art.
Yes, thank you so much, Rebecca. Wow. Give it up for Rebecca. You know the deal. Your words are so like, I feel like they just like move, they flow, and they all just like kind of go together. Really appreciate you being here and sharing with us. Please check out the Poets and Writers Coalition and the Meat Space magazine. I'm sure they must have put the information in the what's it called? The chat box. But yes, thank you so much. Want to bring back Parl so we can go into the next phase of the open mic. Hey, Parl.
Hey, so up next, we're gonna have Will Giles performing with us. William Nuatupu Giles is an Afakasi Samoan poet and arts educator from Honolulu, Hawaii. Their work explores mental health issues emerging out of modern colonization, how we change to chase diaspora, and the waters that connect us. Will is a Kundiman, forgive me for that pronunciation, fellow and international poetry slam champ who has performed at the San Francisco Opera House, John F. Kennedy Center, and Broadway's New Amsterdam Theater. They've also facilitated poetry workshops across the Pacific in New Guinea, Guam, and Aotearoa. Excuse my pronunciation again. Will's work has been featured by HBO, the National Park Service, Bud and Poetry, and NBC News. And now we welcome him or them.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Thank y'all so much for being here. So this, I believe this is just a little preview. I'm gonna share a single poem as a little, I believe we're gonna check out if there's any student open mics, signups. So yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah. I'm so excited to be here. Thank y'all for coming through. Thank you all of the student performers for rocking out. Yeah, so this is kind of like I'm going to share a little bit of my poetic journey. I kind of view poetry as the thing that allowed me to, I think early in my life, I felt like nothing but a statistic, and poetry is one of the things that allowed me to kind of become a storyteller. And by learning the power of voice through kind of personal action and reaction, and by creating this story instead of being a narrative, a passive part of one. So this first poem I'm going to share is about how poetry can be used to rewrite certain parts of your life that may have been less than ideal, but poetry is one way that I've kind of found agency and taken control of different parts of my life. It's called Synonyms for Mistake, and it was about my birth. My mother burped, and no one said, "Bless you." This is how my birth has been described to me. It was accidental, unexpected, and just somewhat sacrilegious. This is what I mean when I say that I've spent a lifetime being forgotten, that I escaped my mother's body, not unlike a surprise fart after a dinner where no beans had been served. I've lost a lot of that burden now, though, I tell my therapist. She says nothing. She doesn't really exist, or she does in the same way that roses exist, as a grand idea, as a gesture that blooms and wilts in a week, a slow explosion, debris you can hold but never keep. I hide the excuses and the dried petals of roses in a book of poems. The pages wilt, as my brother tells me he misses the days when I was just a memory. This new person is such a difficult target, and wouldn't I consider changing back into a tombstone? See, humans are such messy monuments, and it would be so much easier if I were seed, something buried underground. I imagine him saying it would be so much easier to find me on the weekend when the sun is shining and my nephew can run on the grass without falling into the weeds, without staining his feet on the memory of my name. I don't think about that often, though. I tell the flowers. I pull them over my face and make a lay of 6 sun-eating wagon wheels, 6 faces craning towards the sun. I lay down on this new bed and become one of them, a new dandelion resting my eyes, or maybe taking my brother's advice. Word. And as part of this little kind of introduction period, I also want to kind of share with y'all the power of repetition in poetry for me, and also if you don't consider yourselves poets, how most of it is you are. I think if you've ever told a story, if you've ever described your weekend to someone, you are a poet. Because before poems were ever written, they were spoken. So if you are a storyteller, you already have the tools to become a poet. So if y'all would like to, I have this very mini writing prompt I would love to kind of share with y'all. It's kind of interrogating where you come from, because for me, that's where so many of my poems come from. So the first thing, yeah, the first thing, like I said, it's very easy to participate if you'd like to. But we're just gonna make a small list of places you come from. The first one, I want you to list, where you can write, I come from, and then the first one, I want you to list a place. This can be planet Earth. This can be your hometown, or the library that you spend most of your time studying in. But the first prompt is I come from, and then place. The second one is going to be I come from, and then list a person. You can kind of be more detailed. You can say you come from your parents. You can say you come from your best friend, or even a certain thing about that person. Like I come from my sister's bravery, or I come from my mother's tenacity. You can kind of describe a part of that person. And then the third one, I want y'all to write I come from, and then list out an emotion. So again, that first one is I come from place. The second one is I come from a person. And then the third one is I come from, and then an emotion. And then literally, if you want to write a mini poem, all you have to do once you have your list of 3 is to write an extra line kind of detailing something about that place, something about that person, something about that emotion. And then you have a mini little 6-line poem. I wrote that just because I wasn't sure if anyone signed up for the open mic, but if you want to, you literally have the tools immediately. Because I think, again, like reflecting on the people, the places, and the feelings that made us who we are is something that has literally made me a poet. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. Yeah. Feel free to write this at a later time. You can jot it down right now, because I think we may be taking a quick break. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with y'all as a part of, like, I think that actually acts as a good introduction to myself, because I didn't really fall in love with poetry as a performer as much as I did as a listener. So again, even if you don't think of yourself as a poet, know that you've been training for this your entire life with every story you've told. Yeah. Thank y'all again for being here, and hopefully we'll have some after the break. Maybe we can have some people shout out some lines from their poem. If you want to even share it in the chat, we'd love to read any of those. But yeah, I think I'm gonna pitch it back to our amazing hosts. Thank y'all, and I will see you later on.
Yes. Wow. Y'all, get ready. Get ready. We need to take a little break, like Will said, because y'all ain't ready for the words that they're about to just bless us with. So we're gonna take a little break. Like they said, if you want to sign up, there is a link in the chat. And yeah, y'all got the tools now. I don't hear no excuses per. So yes, let's take a little break. Go use the restroom, get a snack, drink some water, all that good stuff, and we'll be back with Will's performance. Thank you.
Filling out my cup, coffee talk on the screen porch. So in love, now you're the one I'm losing sleep for. And I hope the wrong one slip right through your magic fingers. And I hope we find some way to fall in love like we were. Yeah, you're the only reason I was California dreaming in the first place. Seeing you in sundress seasons got me all up in my feelings for the old days, old days. I've got the summertime blues, thinking about you and me in the way that it used to be. I've got the summertime blues, hoping that you might be still holding on to me. I still do think about you in the morning when I'm waking up. Laying in this bed without you has got me lonely and missing your touch. Yeah, you're the only reason I was California dreaming in the first place. Seeing you in sundress seasons got me all up in my feelings for the all days, all days. I've got the summertime blues, thinking about you and me and the way that it used to be. Hey, I've got the summertime blues, hoping that you might be still holding on to me. I still do think about you late at night when the sun's going down. Laying in this bed without you, it feels so different when you're not around. Yeah, you're the only reason I was California dreaming in the first place. And
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone got to take a nice little break. I'm really happy to say that we did have one person sign up for open mic. So before we go on to Will, we're going to have Nina come back on. So I'll go now.
Hello. I wrote a poem actually during LT, and it was kind of similar to the prompt that Will introduced. And just for some context, I consider myself not a poet. I like to draw instead of write, if you get what my vibe. But during LT, when thinking about what to write for my poem, yeah, I try to channel my inner poet. So yeah, it's from the I Am poem prompt. If you attended LT, if you remember that. So yeah. Okay. I am from tea eggs wrapped in plastic and hot Cheetos sold in the corner of my Saturday Chinese school. I'm from the motherboard of Silicon Valley, coated with the American dream and orange poppies, a land of immigrants filled with the sweet aroma of success, culture, and perseverance. I'm from the fields in front of my neighborhood, the stalks of corn whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I am from discipline and grace, written in the hymns of battered pages, a merge of cultures found in scripts of faith. I'm from the treasures of my ancestors, from traditional paintings hung on the walls to clay teapots and glass cabinets glistening in the sunlight through the windows of my youth. I am from the exotic fabrics of qipao and kabaya, woven with silks of beauty and honor, worn by the generations before me. I'm from the land of the free, but the beaches of Malaysia and the Confucius temples of Taiwan are found in my blood. I'm from the strands of dough and beef noodles and laksa, overfilling with soups of spices and bones marinated in longevity. I'm from privilege, carried on the hardworking backs of the older generation, with their words of wisdom found in my spine. From ancestral pride and slanted eyes and yellow skin, to the outspoken strength lifted by the intricate roots found in my straight black hair. Like the floating lantern hung in my room, I carry history in my skeleton, lighting up the path for my children. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. That was so good. Everybody snaps to Nina. I really appreciate you for taking the courage and speaking out at open mic and just participating today in general. So now we have our feature artist for the night, Will Giles, will be performing for us. And thank you, Will, again for being with us tonight.
Hello, everyone. I was muted, but I'm back again, back with the jump off. Thank you again so much for sharing, Nina. I love origin poems so much. And yeah, thank you for just like jumping in last minute. Yeah, with that, I think I will bring another origin poem as well. So this poem, it's called Oral Traditions. And it kind of talks about how Pacific cultures kind of became storytellers before they kind of invented or discovered written word. All storytelling, all science, all history and genealogy was passed down verbally and orally, and it was something that people trained for. And I thought about um, the kind of connection between spoken poetry and Pacific oral tradition. And I wrote this poem. It's actually co-written with a mentor of mine from U Speaks Hawaii, Travis Ka'ulala'au Thompson. So shout out to co-friends, shout out to writing homies. Content warning for consequences of colonial diseases introduced to Native populations. Yeah, I can add like a general content warning of colonization for my entire set. So shout out to historical sadness. I will be bringing a lot of that your way. Buckle up, friends. Emotional seatbelts. But yes, again, this poem is called Oral Traditions. For over 3.5 millennia, the islanders of Pacifica spoke without alphabet or written language, so spit me a poem with the names of the wind and the rain, the sacred spaces of your gods and ancestors. The people of Oceania retained all knowledge and all history through the shaping of spoken word into muscle memory, every story a poem. So spit me a poem of how the world was made, beginning with your grandmother's face, how every speck of land on this earth was poured from the thick cocoa of her eyes, every island and continent broken only by her blinks. You see, an ocean erases all that is written in sand, so my ancestors etched everything into the tides of their tongues. And now, as a historian, while I retell the tales of my ancestors using a colonizer's English, I am unsure if my act is one of resistance or oppression. I sometimes still see my tongue the way an amputee feels the itch of a dismembered limb. It aches when I say my own middle name, Nu'utupu. I was born with the pride of my history, but no knowledge of my language. Speaking with the pride of a skin I lived with, but not in. Imagine. Imagine the entire knowledge of the world ended with what you could remember. In ancient Polynesia, the children with the best memory skills were chosen to be the culture keepers, the storytellers. They were hand picked to be poets. Weaving today's events into yesterday's lore, they were practicing immortality in breath, weaving generations through genealogies until foreign diseases interrupted entire bloodlines with death. In just over 100 years of the arrival of the West, nearly 90% of the native Hawaiian population was dead and their language was banned. Only 1 in 10 survived. So a knowledgeable person's death was the same as a library burning down. Today, we are still sifting through the ashes of a culture once deemed illegal. We are the descendants of the 10% who learned to speak and smoke, and my tongue still feels just like a colonizer's shovel, With most words, I am unsure if I am burying my ancestors or digging them up. So spit me a poem about rebirth and redefining home, about the ways your forefathers died and the ways that you have grown. Though I do not sound like my ancestors, I still practice their traditions. These bones still remember their stories, and I cannot escape the colonization of my people any more than I can escape their near extinction. So my own personal culture must be more than language, it is practice. So I will spit you a poem without alphabet or written language, weaving today's events into yesterday's lore. I will spit you a poem with all the knowledge of the world, ending with what I can remember and more. I will teach 100 years of colonizers that a language is the most dangerous weapon you can give to a bloodline of storytellers, culture keepers, with a responsibility to speak no matter the split tongue. So spit me a poem about the ways you learn to mourn and love, and I will call your mouth home. Spit me a poem that is somehow more rope than it is stone, and I will weave your story into the library born within these bones, so that our stories will never have to die, so that our stories will never have to live alone. Whew. One thing that I talk about a lot in my poems is the idea of rebuilding and recontextualizing history, and I think that poem does so much for me. I mean, since I've started writing that poem, I've definitely tried to take some Samoan language classes and pick up the idea of language, because I am very enamored and really focused on like what culture is lost through the passing of language. But I do think that cultural traditions can become personal traditions, and I do believe that when I am sharing poems, I am remembering and creating a Pacific history, and that's why I think I love it so much, because it does um, feel like something remembered, and the idea of this new art form of slam, kind of being more cultural and being something that is more of a remember than a new invention. Um, if y'all, I may ask for a little bit of crowd participation. So if y'all are down, I would love maybe even going back to that mini free write we did before, but I would love for y'all to close your eyes and imagine your home. One word that describes it. And if you could either say it out loud or drop that one word in the chat on the count of about three. 1, 2, and 3. Shores. Oh my goodness. I just saw the chat and two people said warm, and like I live that home is so warm. Um, so I love kind of, again, because I wanna talk about home and talk about where I come from. I also think that kind of our traditions of spoken word and of history is incomplete without the idea of a griot. So thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for bringing your digital voices into the room and creating an oral history and an oral document with us. Thank you for making history. Um, my next poem that I would love to share is actually dedicated to everyone that I worked with in the hotels, bars, and restaurants, the service industry of Hawaii. I'm not sure if y'all are super familiar with Hawaii, but we don't really have I think, like when you think about the things a place produces, you can see the priorities of it. Hawaii doesn't really have any national industries except for tourism. So instead of like planting farm, planting using land for agriculture, all of the land kind of gets used up by hotels, selling this idea of paradise that most natives can't afford. And like it's a bit of an issue now where so many Hawaiian people, well, Hawaiians are a minority in their own homeland, um, and that idea of kind of the the U.S. The U.S. Colonial kind of powers of being. Uh, Really, if since tourism is the main industry, a lot of the laws and a lot of the kind of ways that even laws are enforced are meant to cater to tourists, and it ignores the people who live there. So I wrote this poem as my way of sharing kind of like the people that I come from. And yeah, the people who work 2 or 3 jobs to create this idea of paradise that most of them can't afford. It's called Service Exit. And like I said, it's dedicated to everybody who I worked with at all of the hotels and restaurants that make up the tourism industry in Hawaii. Service Exit. What they don't tell you in the pamphlets is that an empty stomach is really what cleans hotel rooms. Assembly line of aunties making tides from fingertips, minimum wage, and minimum fuss are how these hands fold into the creases of dirty sheets. A native grandmother's bruised knees are still every resort's most common amenity. She says over the churning industrial wash, there is a song in dirt being erased by the gentle swell of tide. My auntie's eroding smile is a shore of shifting wrinkles. Watch the sand carried away between tourist toes, every grain a Gugam bride, a souvenir of conquered salt. A single drop of her sweat falls into the basin, a sovereign ocean drowning in bleach. I like to share that poem, not as a way of saying like never visit Hawaii or like, but I mean, just pay attention if you do go for a honeymoon or you do go for a family reunion, pay attention to the people who are kind of there, the invisible people serving paradise and making it run. And get out of Waikiki. Do not stay in Waikiki. Visit places, kick it with the native folks. Go to places that support native arts. Yeah, avoid. Yeah, it's really strange even now during the pandemic because now that the flights have kind of picked up again, I was reading that like 20,000 people are entering Hawaii a day, and it's wild. Again, like there's so many anecdotes you hear about police only ticketing and enforcing coronavirus like things and like ticketing people who don't wear masks only if you are not a tourist, which is again a really concerning thing to me when and just another example of like within capitalism how natives are treated as second class citizens in their own home. But yeah, I like to share that poem just because the tourism industry does not want you to see the people who are crushed behind its wheels. You know, like they just show you the white sand beaches and the hula skirts. But yeah, I think that's part of my job as a poet, to share the scary and the ugly reflections of home alongside the beautiful ones. Whew, yeah. Again, apologies for being such a downer. What I should have added to my bio, that my poetry has also been described as an episode of BBC's Planet Earth, narrated by a severely depressed Guy Fieri. So, welcome to Planet Earth capitalism version. Along with that, along with talking about like the ideas of how Native people are kind of like bought and sold and how our images are bought and sold, I'm going to share a poem that I wrote based when I noticed that all of these like soap and deodorant scents are kind of based on like the names of Native peoples. So I wanted to kind of like shout out. I also use a heck of a lot of like pop culture imagery in my poems. So if the beginning will sound strange, but it's going back to an Old Spice commercial where the dude was riding the horse. I don't know if any of y'all remember the OG original viral videos that was Old Spice's marketing campaigns, but yes. Whew. Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back to your man. Now back to me. Look down, back up. Where are you? You're on a boat. Browsing the deodorant aisle, scanning what exploited people I'd like to smell like for the next month, and I can't decide between Axe's Africa Lynx and Old Spice's Fiji. And as a proud Polynesian, I just want to know how they made those scents. If in 1874, when the native Fijian population was almost wiped out and Fiji was officially ceded to Great Britain, if they bottled the native tears that they found in that year, if they kept them in casks and let them ferment to be saved and sold here, or if they found the wreckage of a ship used to cross the Middle Passage, sanded wood down from the beams and took embedded slave teeth, is the Africa that is bought and that is sold by a British and Dutch company called Axe, the same one as the Africa that was stolen with British and Dutch guns, was a slave, this nation's first antiperspirant. Just something you bought to make you sweat less. And do the sales for these scents mean we are getting nostalgic now? Did we miss the smell of sweated brows and taut ropes, of creaking leather and plantation hopes? Do the broken backs beneath my feet make me feel sexy? Is this it? Is the scent that attracts sex violence? Should I curb stomp a stranger, then scrape my knuckles in that man's blood and call it cologne? Will the ichor of death always be the strongest aphrodisiac? And is this just the latest stage of colonization? Steal your culture, exoticize it, eroticize it, water it down, then sell the name back to you to throw you off the scent. This way, if you ever return home to a motherland you never knew, it will disgust you. It will be an unfamiliar bouquet that smells nothing like that body deodorant spray I only know home as prepackaged and acidic, and this is not it. Show me an illegal overthrow of a sovereign monarchy, and I'll show you Febrez's newest scent, Hawaiian Aloha. It's a bathroom plug-in you use to cover up the smell of your own. Now that smells familiar. Look down, back up, where are you? You're on a boat! You're on a boat that sent guns and textiles to Europe to trade for slaves that provided labor in the Americas to grow cotton, tobacco, and cane. You're on a boat with the groans of the dying, with the songs of the forest caught in the mud of our throats, with hunger so harsh our bellies turned to stone so they could digest the iron from nails we pulled from the wood. So is that the joke? American deodorant company, were you telling us what we already knew, that our brown bodies were once bought and sold like an Old Spice too? And is this just the latest stage of marketing? In 5 years, will I be able to coat my armpits with the scent of levees breaking? Will these advertisements show women drowning by the hundreds in the hurricane, unable to resist my scent? I will buy nothing from the black market that broke into my neighbor's home and stole the garden whole. Look down, back up, where are you? You are not here. You are not in Africa. You are not in Fiji. You are putting that bottle back on the counter. Even your sweat smells of sweeter things than that. Whew. Whew. So like I said, I think I write a lot about these big issues of colonialism that I always felt like I was a product of, and no pun intended with product, because of all of like the Fiji water and deodorant sprays and Febreze uses. But the idea of kind of like colonizing a people and then taking their name and then selling the idea of culture back to them was really concerning for me, because I actually used to love that Fiji spray. I used to buy that religiously and was just like, I'm supporting my people. And then I was like, wait, who owns this? Who benefits from using native names? Like that kind of disconnect was frustrating for me. It was like really, really wild. Yeah. Whew. So I think in line with that, I also use pop culture as well, and these references and these ideas of these fictional characters to kind of deal with larger than life things that I'm concerned with. So I've actually got a poem coming up about the intersections of Pokemon and depression. So content warning for depression here. Yeah, I'll share the poem and then talk about it a little bit afterwards. But yes, content warning for depression and alcohol use. It's called Pokemon Blues Red version. What? Diglett is evolving. Diglett has evolved into Dugtrio. For those of you who don't like Pokemon, imagine that Diglett is like a hot dog with a face sticking out of the ground, and then Dugtrio is 3 hot dogs with 3 faces coming out of the ground. And that's literally the text that they use for the evolutions. Okay, what? Diglett is evolving. Diglett has evolved into Dugtrio. So my depression is an underground dick who is always inviting friends to the party. It is a sad leather husk who only knows how to dig. Mount Moon is this cave where all 10-year-old fears live. Like, what if my batteries die before I save the game? Or what if he comes home angry again? What if McDonald's shuts down? Or what if I'm allergic to ice cream? In Mount Moon, the darkness does not welcome vapid deceit. That cave waits until you fall into a hole of your own making. The ground moans as something laughs underneath you. Or do you imagine the ceiling-bound Zubat nibbling on your ear? You capture it. You name it anxiety and hope it will now work for you. This is why we continue to play the game, hoping the charred voices of glass inside of us could be captured, carried, and trained. Like if you name your depression fourth hand dildo, you will laugh. You will laugh when it rips up the floorboards. You will laugh when you are choking on sawdust. You will laugh when it pulls you underground. Your body, it turns out, is Mount Moon, a dark cave you are trapped in. Liquor is an escape rope you can buy at every store. And when you wake up outside, that sun prying into your eyes and no memory of the night before, you know it was worth every cent. You are still 10-year-old angry, though. Anxiety whispers you ran away because you are so weak. So you buy more potions at the store, walk in small circles, grinding through the grass for hours. Hurting other people with your fourth hand dildo is how you gain experience. You only feel safe when your depression is the strongest thing about you. You are confused. You hurt yourself in confusion. Whew. So this is another thing, another gift that poetry has given me. It is one of the ways in which I reimagine the world I know to be true. I can take something real to me and I can have a conversation with it. I can understand myself in the world of Pokemon because I know the rules, right? And if I exist in that world, then maybe I am real too, that I can learn the same lessons from them. And the ideas of like the same capability of growth when all it is getting to is like building up your experience levels. Yeah. Whew, this time is shooting by. But yeah, I love again putting scary emotions into the world of metaphor, into the world of imagination. Yeah, it's one thing that the poetry has always kind of granted me. I wrote this next poem over the course of several years, actually, and at the time it felt really frustrating and incomplete, and like I didn't know what I was doing. But I really appreciate it now because it taught me so much patience about the creative process and the idea that our art is never complete. It can always grow. It can always evolve. And you can always find more verses in the poem. It's another kind of one that uses the imagery of pop culture. This time, it is. I'll just start it, and you can see. So, an open letter to Marvel Comics. I've always been confused about your flagship character, Captain America. As the most militarized nation in the history of the world, I don't understand how our mascot's primary weapon is a shield. I feel like he'd be more authentic if he walked around with a nuclear missile stuffed into his tidy whities, or if he stalked around waterboarding terrorists with Diet Coke, or if he toted a bag full of Big Macs to clog the arteries of his enemies. If the next Avengers movie is a prequel and we travel back to 1492, what they call Christopher Columbus Captain America, would his weapon be a flag infected with smallpox if it was set in Hawaii 1778? Would that American captain's name be Cook, his weapon a ship full of cholera? When I see that shield, I am reminded that 1 of every 8 adult natives in Guam is a U.S. veteran, that American Samoa has a top army recruiting station in the United States, that Polynesian Islanders have the highest casualty rates in our armed forces. We are dying to belong. And I am beginning to understand the metaphor of Captain America's weapon. So show me how a country builds a human shield, fills a military with the children of nations it has slain. We in the United States spend over 8 times as much of our national budget on warfare than we do on education. Then we wait as failing schools spit out kids unserved. Wait until the opportunities we dreamed of seem farther away than the stars our people once used as maps. Then we ask the question to the young: would you fire a gun to feed your sons? Would you die on a battlefield to build a house for your daughter? See, we in America decry warlords in different countries for enlisting 13-year-old soldiers, while every week I watch ROTC recruiters fish my cousins out of classrooms. See, when the military grabs the land your family used to farm, sugar plantation becomes platoon. But when farmers till the earth with guns, the only crop is blood. When war is our only industry, the only crop is blood. In these territories, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin, and Northern Marianas Islands, the people are unable to cast a vote for the US president who decides where and when we go to war. So they are a shield with a lip, but no mouth, no say what country it will be thrown into next. We are so much more than war's bone and blood fist, more than body made into bullet trap. I will show you how a shield given no voice can still grow teeth, still teach itself how to speak. We, survivors turned soldiers, we once and always will be warriors. We, as Captain America, when your shield, our families decide our lives are worth more than the price of your citizenship, what will you hide behind then? Whew. Word. Yeah. I wrote that poem because I have so many friends that I grew up with, so many family members who served in the armed forces, and they did it. They did it to take care of themselves, take care of their families, and it also kind of fits in with the idea of colonization, that so many of these remote islands are stripped of any sort of economic abilities, and then they're taught that the only way they can escape, the only way that they can get out of get out of this small home where they cannot afford to live, is by like murdering other people of color. And like that idea of never-ending war is one that terrifies me about the United States. And I also like love Marvel like properties and movies, but it's so concerning to me that every time I watch any one of them, it's just like advertisements for U.S. military, which is not a mistake either, because I was so concerned when I found out that like the U.S. military like funds a lot of Hollywood, and like if they actually will give you money if you are creating like they fund the Transformers movies a bunch, and as long as the military are protagonists, they will actually give so many people yes, propaganda. I don't know, that idea that a lot of like our I guess I shouldn't be surprised by propaganda. That's super real. Yes, so I will. I believe I'm gonna share a few more poems. I think I've been going really hard at kind of like the larger things that I was not able to, the larger kind of like things that scare me about this country. So I'm gonna move it a little bit more personal and share this small poem called "Orbit," or Everything I Know About Love, in 4 parts. Whew. So 1, I've been thinking a lot about love lately, and I think what makes it so elusive is that you never know the exact moment when you fall for someone. Is it after the 8th pun that they crack that makes you groan and sigh and choke on your water? Or after the first song you hear them sing, the universe itself splashing out of their mouth, and you truly believe that this is what scientists mean when they say the galaxy we live in is always expanding? The thing about love is you never know the exact moment when you fall, but you know exactly when it ends. Like love is realizing that a bird pooped on your head and you have no idea when it happened. No, that's not it. Love, I think, is singing. Most of it is learning how to control your own breathing. It is believing you can hit that high note. It is projecting through uncertainty. It is the bravest you can be while walking off a cliff. No, that's not it either. Love is not bird poop or singing, because love is definitely the Olympics, because they are both an unending slew of sports. So while composing the About Me section on my Tinder bio, I am dancing back and forth on a gymnastics floor, searching for the contortions of desire, thinking if I do well, this could be the face you look at in the morning while you eat your Wheaties. Together, we play shot put with our insecurities, these heavy weights, and we are judged on how far away we can throw them from our bodies. None of this is why I think falling in love is like the Olympics. Instead, I think of the ways in which they both end, when the buildings fall empty and the places where nations once cheered, cried, and broke open together are now just a dirt hangover, a dream dry heaving on the pavement. When love or a promise falls empty, the words that made hearts cheer, cry, and break open are now just an empty crack in the pavement. I read that 6 months after the Olympic Games left Brazil, the buildings have all been vandalized, the chairs ripped out and stolen, these pools drained and filled with sludge, and these messy concrete arteries, they grow dust. In the months that follow, we still do the javelin throw sometimes, only now they are words or promises, emails dripping with venom, or drunk texts on my birthday. These games aren't a place as much as they are a memory. These old homes, these spectacles of hope, now reduced to tendons and muscle, training themselves just to rubble. Just a collection of buildings and two people, swelling like a heart, training for another year, remembering what it was like to be full. 2. The first time I saw a mousetrap, I didn't know what it was, so I grabbed it with my hands and I thought my arm was going to fall off. A few years later, I got bit by a centipede and screamed while the venom pulsed its way through my foot and I thought I was dying. A few years later, I fell off the back of a moving car and landed on my feet. Not understanding the science of momentum, I immediately fell backwards and hit my head on the concrete. And I thought the earth itself was imploding. Most of our lives, we live in a sensitive dimension where we are constantly pushing at the edges of what we know to be real. Every moment of happy seems impossible to imagine until you are surrounded by it. Every pain is the most intense until the next. There are divorces happening and songs being written, suicide notes discovered, and a nephew being born. We are just a collection of smiles and scars, a cabaret of scraps and laughter. And as we close our eyes at the end of the day, we become the smallest leaks of light the world has never seen, and we learn how to turn our bruises into a lullaby and fall asleep. 3. Guilty pleasures are the human habit of making monuments from memories. When I was younger, the thing that made me happiest in the whole world was definitely French fries. Thick cut and sealed and wrapped in newspaper at a shop a block away from my grandmother's place in New Zealand. Sometimes when I'm sad and I want a taste of that nostalgia, I'll go back to McDonald's even though it makes me sick. There is this small piece of I deserve this in the back of my head that I can't shake. A 10-year-old taste that thinks I can still find happiness in the past. I do the same thing with breakups now, latch on to a memory because pain is just such easy inspiration, and self-medicating and self-sabotage becomes easier than breathing. How many times does an excuse have to be used before it becomes a prayer? I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. 4. My favorite chore as a kid was washing the car. When the water turned on, I would take to the street and try to hold back the flood of water with clumps of gravel and dirt. This is where I learned to fight my emotions. A childish, curious, and fevered experiment, I would scrape the earth beneath my fingernails and try to control something I couldn't hold. Throughout the years, I kept building walls and fought against concepts I could barely touch, like water, like infatuation, like shame or joy or jealousy. There was this naive idea that barriers built with my hands and empty words did anything. My nostalgia is attempting to fit back into a skin that I've escaped. It is writing everything new into the superficial. It is seeing everything through the idea of the first time, the first hurt, the first words. It is making your worst pain a creation myth, saying you were only born when you began to hurt. I've learned that expectation is a cruel God who never learns your name. It is what tells us that our hearts are more flawed than follow through, and that we will always break, care, and mistake in the same way, that our ugly is the only scripture anyone will ever care to read. That love, I've learned, is playing catch with a grenade, and whoever is hurt worse by the shrapnel of our baggage loves best. But that, I think, isn't right either. Maybe the only thing I know for sure about love is that I've been wrong every time I've tried to define it. So maybe after all of this, love is just astrology. It is the vast, confusing, and very human study of how we react when orbiting celestial bodies. So tonight, call me a planet returning to myself. I am breaking the expectations that I've worn into fifths, and I am singing them. I am making a harmony from every wall that pretends to be a law. So tonight, y'all, I am Saturn taking off its ring. So all my single planets, put your hands up. Tonight, when I look for love, I am turning my telescope into a mirror. Tonight, I am learning how to sing. Tonight, I am believing I can hit this high note, and I am projecting through uncertainty. And this is the bravest I can be while walking off a cliff. Word. Thank you, everyone. Shout out to love. Shout out to breakup. Shout out to hard lessons you can only learn about yourself when seeing yourself through a mirror of someone else. Whew. I think I have time for one more. So I will go ahead and share this last poem. I'm so grateful, so grateful for everybody. Again, the student performers, the organizers who made all of this happen. I'm so grateful to close out this open mic season. But this poem, I want to kind of like dedicate it to anybody who's ever felt, yeah, I want to dedicate it to anybody who's ever felt kind of in between cultures. I was, so a little bit about my family history. My mom immigrated from Samoa to Hawaii before I was born, and like that idea of crossing oceans and kind of like not wanting to, I never ended up learning Samoan growing up because my mother didn't want me to face the discrimination that she faced as an immigrant to this country. And this, I think this is something that's fueled my poetry for a lot of years, this idea that our cultures and our histories would be seen as a weakness, would be seen as something that could hurt us, as opposed to something that kind of can help define and help teach us about ourselves. And the idea of roots that were dangerous for me was something that was really, really confusing for a long time. So yeah, this poem is dedicated to anybody who's ever felt in between cultures, anybody who's felt like half of many things and not whole of anything. As some of the tallest trees in the world, redwoods can grow to over 350 feet above the earth. Yet on average, their roots only travel 10 feet into it. In isolation, it should be physically impossible for them to stand. However, these enormous trees do not grow in isolation. Their roots, each only a single inch thick, wraps around the roots of its neighbor, a stubborn foundation of brown fingers, clasps an underground stand and grows. My family is a group of redwoods that sought God instead of ground. When my mother immigrated to the United States from Samoa, she taught none of her children how to speak our native tongue. Now, 29 years later, I cannot feel the hands of the land I come from. How do you stand when your roots have been burned away? Today, I am a tree toppling over, a person cut off at the knees, stuck between a loved language lost and a sky still out of reach. And that is the true legacy of World War II in the Pacific. An entire generation of Asian and Islander immigrants who learned that their foreign accents and different skin could mean your family in internment camps. Learned that their place in the society would only be bought with blood and uniform. They learned their citizenship papers would only be traded for their severed tongues. It is true that the branches of a tree may spread no wider than its roots, but when parent countries are just an exotic word for poverty, when you are made to choose between putting your children in culture or clothing, which blood would you want? This, I think, is how redwoods fall. They forget the only reason they are able to stand and defy common logic is how well they hold one another. In Hawaii, this immigrant mecca where so many of us try to stand with a lost past, we have old, weeping banyan trees who also come from across that sea. These banyans begin from single seeds that are blown into other canopies, and without pity or regard for past, they grow their own way to the ground, sprouting aerial roots that fall to the earth and make a home wherever they find. So in Polynesia, we have always learned from the earth around us. So now I do not lament my lack of roots. Instead, I grow them myself. So every day I am a wind-blown seed. I am foreign accents and different skin. Every day I fall towards the earth and am reborn in dirt. I am blood in uniform and severed tongue. Every day I make sure I find a mirror. I lock eyes with myself and I tell myself that I am the blood I want. Every day I look around. I hold on tight to those I love and I grow into an extended family tree. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being an extended part of my roots and my tree, my cultural family now. Thank you, everyone, for sharing, for showing up, and being a part of this community. Hopefully, post-pandemic, if there are still open mics, I would love to make it out to San Jose and kick it with y'all in person and like write some workshops and spit some poems. But yeah, thank y'all so much. I'm really, really happy to be here. I hope y'all had I hope y'all had a night full of feelings like I did. Yeah, I don't know if our hosts have anything to say to close it out. I will see the stage.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much. Like, I am in awe. We're all feeling our feels right now. Like, I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. Your art and your work is very, very beautiful. Wow. Give it up, everybody, for Will. Thank you so much for closing out our open mics this year. So on such a strong, strong, beautiful, amazing note. And also for being our featured artist tonight for the PETA Heritage Month. We all learned and we all went through this whole experience and performance together, and I really appreciate everyone here tonight. Thank you so much, Parl, for being my co-host. Thank you so much, Nina and Rebecca, for being our featured student artists. And obviously, thank you so much to the Student Union and to the APIDA Task Force and to the amazing Mosaic team for the support, as y'all always do. And yeah, like I said before, sadly, this is our last open mic of the semester, but please please, please check out all the events that we're going to be doing, especially for this month, APIDA month. Check out the events that the student unions got coming up. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Take care, be safe, wear that mask, eat some food, take care of yourselves. Bye.